Welcome to your virtual tree identification tour. We're going to start with one that's really simple that most field biology students know about before they even come into the class, which is American holly. American holly is an evergreen, meaning that it stays green all year round. It's characterized by these very dark green leaves with extremely sharp, coarse teeth on the side to the point where it actually ends in spines. I'm going to say that this tree that we're looking at right here is a male, because I don't see any red berries on it. And the female holly have red berries and the male holly do not. Right next door here, we have a tree that is also characterized by its coarse teeth. This is an American beech. American beech has this really nice, smooth, thin, smooth gray bark. You'll see a lot of times that people will carve initials into it because the bark grows really slowly and the initials stay there. I'm not suggesting you do that. I'm just saying you might use it as an identification tool. So if you look at the leaf of the American beech, and this one's small because it's new growth, but you can see that it has teeth along the edge here, coarse teeth, and it has those nice pinnate veins, and it's very fuzzy on the back. So that is the American beech. So here we have two more evergreens that you're very likely to see in your travels around your yard and neighborhood. This one is an eastern red cedar. It has kind of scaly needle-like leaves. It still has its seeds in cones, so it is a conifer tree, and it is evergreen. And it's characterized by this really thin, peely bark, which you can see really well on this. This is an adult eastern red cedar here, and you can see the peely bark that is here. This is Loblolly Pine. So Loblolly Pine is one of the pines, the most common pines you're going to find in Virginia. And the way you can tell the difference between the pines is the number of needles that they have. So if you look, Loblolly Pine has 3 really long needles. So it's needles in bundles of 3, and they're really long. So this is our other evergreen that we are going to be teaching you, and this is the Virginia pine. I mentioned it before that this one is going to have bundles in groups of 2, and they're much shorter needles than the Loblolly Pine. So this has bundles in needles in bundles of 2, and you can remember that because it's a V for Virginia. So Virginia pine, the needles make a V. So this is the next species we're going to do, and it is sweet gum. It's a very common one around. You will definitely find it, and it has a very characteristic leaf shape. The leaves are in the shape of a star with 5 pointed lobes like that. And I'm sure some of you have seen these lying around your yard or on the path or around. This is actually the seed case that comes from this tree. So this is the sweet gum ball, as it were, that holds the seeds inside of it. So you can see that to identify it's sweet gum as well. Over here we have another one with a very characteristic shape of the leaf. This is yellow poplar, and yellow poplar has these 4 kind of squared off lobes on it, and some people say it looks like a cat's face with the 2 ears, and here would be where the sides of the face are with the whiskers. So this is yellow poplar. This next tree species is one of our 2 that have compound leaves. Compound leaves are when you have multiple leaflets per one leaf. So this is a hickory. And you can see this whole thing, starting from here, this whole thing is 1 leaf. So this has multiple leaflets per leaf. Now this is new growth of a hickory, and if you are finding this around you now, the leaves are probably going to be more like this big and very compound. The reason you can tell that this is a hickory and not an ash is because it is alternate. It has alternate branching. So if you look over here, 1 branch comes off on this side, 1 comes over here, 1 comes over here, 1 comes over here. It alternates back and forth in terms of how the leaves are coming off of the branches. So that means that it is alternate, which makes it a hickory. So this is a red maple, and one of the things that you can tell, first of all, that since it's one of those mad trees, maple, ash, dogwood, it's going to be opposite. So you can see the branches come off right opposite each other. This is what the leaf looks like. It's doubly toothed. It's also lobed, so it's got this lobed pattern, and then it's doubly toothed. And you can also tell because the stem is red. A lot of parts of the red maple are red. It has red flowers in the spring. It has red stems, and the leaves turn red in the fall, which is all why it gets its name red maple. So this one is a sycamore. One of the first things to notice with a sycamore is actually the bark. You've got this camouflage bark that kind of looks like it's peeling off of the tree. That's going to be your first indication you've got a sycamore. You can also look at the leaf. The leaf has coarsely toothed margins, and it looks very similar to a red maple, except for that when you look at it, it's alternate. So remember, the red maple was opposite, and this one's alternate. It goes right, left, and it goes back and forth when the leaves come off the branches. So this one is alternate, sycamore. So here is our state tree for Virginia, and also our state flower. This is a dogwood, a flowering dogwood. It has, the leaves have arcuate veins. So the veins go up towards the tip of the leaf. And you'll notice it has an opposite branching pattern. So everywhere that the leaves come off, they come off right next to each other. And here is the flower of the flowering dogwood, characteristic for structure. Actually, this part is actually the flower, and these are modified leaves that have been modified to attract the pollinators and be pretty. So there you go, flowering dogwood. Okay, so now we're going to do some oaks. And one of the key things when you're identifying oaks is looking at whether the lobes are rounded or are pointed. So we're going to show you some different types of oaks. Here, this one is a white oak, and you can notice that the white oak has rounded lobes. And you'll get a lot of variation in these leaves. Sometimes they'll cut in more deeply and sometimes they won't, but they always have those nice rounded lobes. This one has pointed lobes, and you can notice the bell-shaped bottom. You notice the bell-shaped bottom on this one. This is a southern red oak. So southern red oaks have this bell-shaped bottom and usually a longer middle lobe coming up here. This one is a northern red oak, which doesn't have that bell-shaped bottom, and also all the lobes are kind of evenly spaced. So this is a northern red oak. It still has the pointed lobes, but doesn't have that characteristic shape of the southern red oak. And this one is a scarlet oak. Scarlet oak also has pointed lobes, but the lobes cut in really deeply toward the midvein. So you see how it comes in really close to the middle of the leaf, whereas the northern red oak didn't do that. So there's the scarlet oak, northern red oak. Here's another one of the oaks that you might find. This is a post oak. It also has rounded lobes, not pointed lobes, just like the white oak, but this one has a much different characteristic shape. So if you look at one leaf of the post oak, you'll notice the top 3 lobes are really squared off, and then it's got these 2 smaller lobes at the bottom. So it kind of looks like a cross. So that is post oak. This is one of the oaks that has pointed lobes on it. This is a black oak. And at first it looks like it's very similar in shape to the northern red oak, but one thing that you'll notice is that the lobes are of much different shapes. So the ones at the top are much larger lobes than the ones at the bottom. And this is a very small black oak leaf, so it'll be much larger when you're actually looking at it. One of the major characteristics of the black oak leaf is it has hair on the back that when you use your finger, you can actually see it. It just comes off really easily. So you can wipe with your finger really lightly and the hair will just wipe off, and that's how you can tell that it's a black oak leaf. A northern red oak leaf would be shiny on the back with no hair. So this is one of the other oaks that we have you identifying. This is a willow oak, and willow oak is very different from all the other oaks because the leaves are not lobed. So each of the individual willow oak leaves is just one leaf with no lobes. It does have a bristle hair coming off of the tip, and that is your willow oak. So before you start exploring out in your yard and neighborhood for all of these types of organisms, one very important plant we need to tell you how to identify is poison ivy. This right here is poison ivy. This is the characteristic leaves of 3, and the young growth like this usually has this red tint to it. So once when they're first coming out, they have that red tint, but once they're older, they would lose that and it would just be green. But you can see that it's a group of 3 leaves together. Another thing in the winter that's important to know for poison ivy is that it has this hairy vine. So hairy vine, no friend of mine. Don't touch any hairy vines. So if you look, this tree is dead. All of the growth you see coming out of this tree all the way up is all poison ivy. So now we want you to go out into your yard and into your neighborhood and see what trees you can find. Just explore. Take some pictures. Take video of yourself with the tree. And if you have questions about identification, remember that you can always come to our online office hours and have us help you identify the leaves that way. So this is a work day for you to work on your field guide. Just go outside, explore, have fun.